Hi folks, this is All the Fruit and welcome to the second part of the second video, or basically the third video, about what fruit you can forage in Germany in March. Well, in the first part of the second video I made an introduction about what to expect when you go fruit foraging in Germany in March and what winters are best for even having enough fruit to forage in March, and I covered this pile of fruit here. And because the video was getting quite long, I left some of the most interesting fruit for the second video. Now let's look what we have here. Here we have a couple grasses. Here we have Dactylis glomerata, a very common grass in Germany. This is Bromus carinatus or catharticus, some new exotic grass which is spreading in this part of Germany. And here we should have, where is it? And here we have Arenacerum elaceus, another very common grass in Germany. Well, grains or cereals are grasses, so why not forage for wild grasses? Basically, it's thought that agriculture originated when people who were foraging for wild grasses in the Middle East run out of enough wild grasses to forage and had to start planting them. And actually it's being said that a lot of Native American nations in California never developed agriculture because they had enough wild grasses to forage. Basically, most wild grasses, if the seeds are big enough, you could forage them and eat the seeds, but there is a lot of diseases like ergot and other molds, and usually they are molds which are more common in some wild grass species than in our cultivated cereals. And so, eating the seeds or grains of wild grasses can be quite dangerous. The seeds itself will probably not poison you, but the chance to get an ergot poisoning is quite high. It is being suspected that ergot was the origin of the dancing plague in Strasbourg in the 15th or 16th century. Basically, it makes you do strange things. For example, dance for weeks until you drop dead. So maybe if you are not in an absolute survival situation, better don't go forage for wild grasses, but plant some reliable cereal or sow some reliable cereal species where you can harvest the grains. Well, here we have a very interesting plant, the mallow. I will do a dedicated video, but it was amazing for me that some plants survive the winter and even have fruit. Why is the mallow so important? Well, nowadays in the West, people don't know so much about the mallow. Basically, well, in the US, of course, and because of US pop culture, the marshmallow is very popular. You know, those little white sweet things you stick on sticks and you roast above the fire. Well, the original marshmallow recipe was made, I think it was from the fruit, but definitely from a mallow species. And for older Germans, the mallow is just as culturally significant as for Americans. I once encountered an older German name for the mallow. Nowadays they use the Latin name, the Germanized Latin name. The Latin name is Malva. The Germans say Malve. Well, the Americans say Mallow. It's the same thing, but there is the old German name Käspappel, which means cheese poplar. Poplar is the cottonwood tree or populus. Well, the poplar part is because of the leaves, which reminds people of poplar leaves, but why cheese? I thought, strange name. And then I asked some old Germans who had been children right in the years after World War II. Now Germany is a very rich country, and even in World War II, an American historian once said the Germans, nobody ate as well as the Germans during World War II, except for the Americans. But after World War II, there were a couple very poor years in Germany. And actually, a lot of old people told me that those little fruit on the mallow plants, they were very important food for them. They were foraging them, usually the children, putting them on bread, and they swear the stuff tastes like cheese. I tried it and it doesn't taste like cheese. Well, the plant survived. Well, most of the fruit are already so old, I don't want to try them. There was a younger fruit somewhere which I thought about trying, but I think it fell off. Well, basically the fruit, the older Germans swear that the fruit of the common mallow tastes like cheese. And when it's in season, I'll do a video about this. Well, what you can do, even if the fruit are not in season, the leaves are quite an interesting vegetable. Actually, I knew a vegan, a very knowledgeable vegan in Arizona 20 years ago. He knew basically he knew every plant that could be eaten, but when it came to leaves, he basically only ate leaves and flowers of mallow species, because he said they are the best green vegetable you can find. And he knew 10 times more about where to forage plants than I ever did. So yeah, the mallow. I think this should be Malva sylvestris most probably, or some very closely related species. I will not identify it from this quite, puny plant which survived all the way to March. But I will do a video about foraging for mallow fruits in a couple months. Well, here another culturally and seems also nutritionally important fruit for Germanic people. In German, this is called Hirtentäschel, and in English, it's called the same, shepherd's purse. Hirte is the shepherd, not only the shepherd, but the herder. It could also be a goat or cattle herder. And Tasche is a bag and Teschel is a little bag. In Bulgaria, it's called Ovčarska turbička, which basically means the little bag of the shepherd. So yeah, shepherd's purse this name seems to have some very old origin and seems to be widespread throughout different European peoples. The plant is edible. Basically all of it is edible. Flowers, leaves, fruit. I would not eat the thicker lower part of the stems, but basically you can eat all the upper part and also eat the lower leaves. When I was a child, I read a book about archaeology, and there was also a chapter about those mummified preserved humans you find in peat box. And a lot of them were sacrificed. And in one of them, in most of them, the stomach content has been researched, but in this book there was an article or a chapter about this mummy and its stomach content. And the stomach content seems to have been a ritualistic last meal made of a mush of different grains, and different greens you can find on a fallow field. Basically, when you leave the field alone for 1 year, you collect the weeds on the field and eat them. And the article said basically this stuff is nutritionally worthless except for the fruit, just the fruit of the shepherd's purse. So all the other greens that were in this mush that got preserved together with the body for 2,000 years, according to those scientists, were nutritionally worthless. They are not worthless, of course. They have fibers and vitamins and minerals. Not that it helped that person a lot. They got sacrificed only hours after that. But the only part of this mush made of a lot of foraged wild greens, the only part which, according to this paper or to this book, had a lot of nutritional value were the fruit of the shepherd's purse. So they seem to have been quite important for sustenance for Germanic peoples 2000 years ago. What else do we have? Well, here there was chestnut, Corylus avellana. The fruit were still hanging on the plant. Here, the seed already fell out, or the fruit already fell out, which means that it was probably well developed if it fell out voluntarily. Those two stayed inside, and even the fruit stayed on the shrub. So I guess even if I open them, there will be nothing edible inside. You can find edible almonds or edible pine nuts in spring. With walnuts, with European walnuts, it's almost impossible. With Asian and American walnuts, it is possible. With hazelnuts, I will try with the tree hazel in a couple of days if I have the time. But I think Corylus avellana, the European hazel, nothing edible in March here. Well, here we have a cotoneaster. I made the video about this cotoneaster babii last year. Last year, it had a it was a very bountiful year for those fruit. Actually, in March, April, and until May, the giant shrubs up to 6-7 meters tall of this cotoneaster species, which is very common as an ornamental in Germany, were covered with red fruit, which are unfortunately quite bitter. This year, very few fruit, I don't know why, but still as bitter as last year, but very well preserved. Still tastes absolutely fresh, only too bitter. The other cotoneaster, like Cotoneaster horizontalis, which are in a much better condition now. But I think if you can boil this, make it into jam or marmalade or whatever, or jelly or juice, maybe the bitterness will go away, because in a bountiful year you can harvest those fruit all winter long until March, April, or even May, and it would be a shame to waste such a resource if the bitterness could be removed by some boiling or other methods. Let's see what else we have. Oh, we don't have so much left. Okay, so this video is going to be a little bit shorter than the last one. Well, here we have a nightshade. When I picked it an hour ago, it had a lot more fruit, but now most of them fell off. Well, nightshade, Solanum. Those are basically like little tomatoes, and the common Solanum species, especially in temperate climate, is Solanum nigrum, but in this warmest part of Germany, here in the southwest, there are several other species, including Solanum villosum. Well, Solanum villosum basically has two subspecies, Solanum villosum, subspecies villosum, and subspecies alatum. And 99% of all plants in our area seem to be a mixture of both, either a hybrid subspecies or a third subspecies with intermediate features. Well, the interesting thing about those Solanum species is they are very susceptible to frost. They are like little tomatoes. If a tomato plant sees frost, basically it dies. They are a little bit more resistant to frost than our cultivated tomatoes, Leucoperisicum esculentum, but still, they don't like harsh frost. So this, I'm not sure if this plant got killed by the frost or dried out at some time, because look, there are still some unripe fruit. So it was still in the process of producing fruit. So maybe a mixture of frost and dry weather killed it. Well, now let's try the fruit. In summer, the Solanum villosum tasted quite good. In winter, I don't expect it to taste that good, because we didn't have enough sun in winter to produce enough sugar in the fruit. Those are definitely fruit from late autumn, or most probably from winter. And also, of course, the plant was in big stress, big cold stress and dying. So I don't expect those fruit to be as good as the ones I ate in summer. But let's try them. Yeah, pretty sour. They taste pretty much like those Last half-dried tomatoes you forage from half. You can pick from half-dead tomato plants in a greenhouse when they are almost dried up. But this is basically the same. It's basically a dead tomato plant or a close relative. So yeah, definitely, definitely an analogy with the tomatoes. So folks, I think this was all. I hope I haven't forgotten any of the fruit here. Once more, you can see the fruit I covered in the last two videos. Maybe I'll manage to do another video about fruit foraging in March. If not, the next video will already be about fruit foraging in April in Germany. So folks, stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful city of Heidelberg during Corona lockdown. And don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.